I was stretched out on my couch, half watching some reality show I didn't care about, scrolling through my phone, debating whether I should bother making dinner or just eat a bowl of dry cereal again. Outside, the streetlights cast their familiar yellow glow over the empty road, and the occasional car passed by, his tires humming softly against the pavement. Everything was still, the kind of quiet you only get in a small town late at night. Then, at 9:17 p.m., my phone buzzed violently in my hand, the jarring blare of an emergency alert making me flinch. The TV screen flashed red, cutting off mid-scene. A robotic voice crackled over the speakers of my radio, which I hadn't even realized was still plugged in. The same message was everywhere. We are sorry. That was it. No warning about a storm or some evacuation instructions. Just a vague, meaningless phrase that sent a strange chill up my spine. I sat up, phone still in my hand, staring at the words as they glowed on my screen. We are sorry. Sorry for what? I flicked to my messages and texted Ryan, my friend who lives across town. Did you get that? The message sent instantly, and the typing bubbles appeared almost immediately. Yeah, what the hell does "we are sorry" mean? It's probably a test or something. I had no answer. I looked outside, expecting to see people standing in the streets, a fire in the distance, but everything looked normal. The street was still empty, the houses around mine were dark, the residents either asleep or unconcerned. I turned the TV volume up, flipping through channels. I saw nothing but reruns, talk shows, commercials, like nothing had happened. No breaking news or explanations. I considered calling someone. 911, the non-emergency line, anyone who might have more information. And that was when I heard a distant rumble. I couldn't tell what it was at first. Then I realized it sounded like aviation machinery. The hum of distant engines grew louder, deep and low, like thunder rolling over the horizon. Then the sound became unmistakable. The rhythmic chop of helicopter blades cutting through the night sky. I stood up and walked to my window, pushing aside the curtain just enough to peer outside. 2 helicopters, black, unmarked, swept low over the rooftops, moving with efficiency. The searchlights scanned the streets, gliding across houses, yards, and parked cars. I watched as the beams passed over my neighbor's house, then my own, making the living room flicker in bright white light before plunging back into shadow. What the hell was happening? My phone screen lit up as I received a message from Ryan. You seeing this now? I responded fast. Yeah, helicopters are hovering above my street right now. Anything weird on your end? Soldiers everywhere. Well, I can't tell if they're actual normal soldiers. They're dressed in all black and wearing gas masks. Soldiers. I looked back out the window and saw them. Military vehicles, several of them rolling through the neighborhood like a slow-moving parade. They weren't police cruisers or National Guard trucks. They were heavier, bigger, armored. Their matte black surfaces looked unnatural under the streetlights, as if they were sucking the glow into them rather than reflecting it. And walking beside them, rifles in hand, were dozens of soldiers in full tactical gear. They moved quickly, splitting off into groups and heading toward different houses. They weren't storming in. They weren't kicking down doors or yelling commands. They were knocking, almost politely, but something about it felt off. I watched as 2 soldiers approached my neighbor's house. They knocked. Mr. Dawson, the old man who lived there, answered. I couldn't hear what was said, but I saw the way his head tilted in confusion. He started shaking his head, as if he didn't like what he was hearing. Then one of the soldiers put a hand on his shoulder, a firm grip. Dawson hesitated, then nodded, stepping aside to let them in. Another buzz from my phone. Power just went out. As if on cue, the lights in my house flickered once, twice. Then everything went dark. Streetlights, houses, even the military vehicles outside, all dead in an instant. I stood there in the dark, my heart pounding in my ears. Through the window, I could see the soldiers didn't seem surprised. They kept moving, their night vision goggles glowing faint green as they worked their way down the block. This wasn't a power outage. This was planned. A cold realization settled in my stomach. They didn't want us to see something. And that's when I felt it. Not heard, felt. A vibration in the ground, not like the vehicles on the streets. It was heavier. I pressed myself closer to the window, squinting into the shadows. The helicopters were circling above, their spotlights scanning, but they weren't looking at the houses anymore. My phone buzzed again. Bro, I think we're in serious trouble. Then, at 9:45 p.m., the silence was shattered. A deep, guttural roar tore through the air. It wasn't like anything I'd ever heard before. It wasn't a siren, wasn't a storm, wasn't even the kind of growl you'd expect from an animal. It was low and violent, the kind of sound that vibrated in your chest, clawing at something deep in your bones. I stumbled back, gripping the windowsill for balance. Then, the gunfire started. First, a few single shots, then a barrage of arsenal rained down. From outside, I saw flashes of muzzle fire lighting up the darkness, soldiers shouting commands. The helicopters overhead dropped flares, bathing the streets in red-orange light. Something huge was out there. I didn't wait to see what happened next. My instincts took over, screaming at me to move, now. I grabbed my backpack, flashlight, and a knife from the kitchen, gripping the handle so tightly my knuckles ached. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to focus, my breathing quick and uneven. I pulled out my phone and texted Ryan. We need to meet up. Where are you? Seconds passed, then... Gas station. Hurry. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and moved to the door, my pulse hammering. I hesitated for a second, one hand on the knob. A new sound made the decision for me. Screaming. Human screaming from somewhere in the distance. I threw the door open and stepped into the night. The second I was outside, I could tell how wrong everything had become. The air smelt burnt and metallic, gunpowder mixed with blood. The streets, normally lit with warm streetlights, were now drenched in pulsing red from the flares overhead. Some people ran barefoot, some still in their pajamas, sprinting down the sidewalks, cutting through yards, shoving past each other in blind panic. I ducked low, sticking close to the houses as I made my way toward the gas station. I knew the layout of the town well enough to take back streets, avoiding the main roads where the military was still engaging whatever they were fighting or doing. A few blocks down, I turned a corner and stopped dead. The street was flattened. It looked like a tornado had torn through. Everything was just leveled. Cars crumpled, asphalt cracked, streetlights snapped in half. The street was covered in the bodies of soldiers and civilians alike. Some were torn apart, their limbs scattered like discarded dolls. Others were smashed, flattened into the pavement, like something impossibly heavy had rolled over them, their weapons bent and crushed. There were no shell casings, no sign that they'd even had time to fire back before they were annihilated. Something unstoppable had come through here. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Where are you?" I forced my legs to move, stepping carefully around the destruction. And then, from the distance, that roar again, followed by a massive explosion. Right after the explosion, I lost service. I tried sending another message anyway. Almost there, but it didn't go through. I quickened my pace, keeping low, my breath coming in short gasps. Every few steps, I'd glance over my shoulder, expecting to see something there. But all I saw were the ruins of my town, bathed in eerie red light from the still glowing flares. When I finally reached the gas station, my stomach sank. It was destroyed. The roof had partially collapsed, glass littered the parking lot, and a gas pump had been ripped from its foundation, cables and metal jutting out like snapped bones. The place looked like it had been hit by a wrecking ball. I hesitated, scanning the ruins for any sign of movement. My chest tightened. What if Ryan was buried under there? "Ryan?" I called out, voice hoarse. For a moment, there was nothing, just the distant sound of helicopters, gunfire, and my own pulse hammering in my ears. Then, "Over here!" Ryan's voice, faint but close. Vaulting over fallen shelves and broken glass. Behind the counter, crouched low and shaking, was Ryan. I barely had time to register my relief before the ground shook beneath us. A vibration, deep and unnatural, rolled through the earth, rattling the debris around us. The air thickened, charged with something heavy, and then the roar, right outside. Ryan grabbed my wrist and yanked me down behind the counter. "Don't move." We pressed ourselves against the cold tile, heartbeats thundering in sync. The gas station trembled, dust and broken glass trickling from the fractured ceiling. The vibrations grew stronger, heavier. It was here. I didn't want to look. Every instinct screamed, "Don't look." But Ryan did, and I felt his body stiffen beside me. I swallowed hard and forced myself to peek over the counter. And that was when I saw it. Massive. Its body looked like it had been stitched together from different things. Muscles, fur, scales, bone, melded into a single, horrifying form. Insect-like legs, too many of them, jointed the wrong way, bristling with thick, curved claws. Its torso was broad, pulsating, as if breathing through unseen slits in its flesh. Parts of it looked wet, glistening in the red glow of the flares, while other sections were dry and cracked like withered skin. And its face, a mouth that split open, the inside of its mouth revealing a second jaw, Mismatched eyes, some glowing, some empty sockets, some that weren't even facing the same direction. I couldn't breathe. For something its size, it should have lurched, should have been heavy, lumbering. But instead, it darted between buildings, its massive legs making little sound compared to the destruction left in its wake. The soldiers opened fire. A squad on the street below unleashed hell. Machine gun fire, high-caliber rounds, grenades exploding against its hide. The air filled with a deafening symphony of war, and I felt it deep in my chest, like my ribcage was being hammered from the inside. The gunfire was nothing like in movies. It was chaotic. Each bullet crack punched through the air like a whip, making my ears ring. The grenade sent shockwaves through the station, rattling my teeth and making the air thick with dust and smoke. For a second, I thought they might be hurting it, but it just ripped through the soldiers like paper. Its claws slashed through body armor like it was slicing butter. One soldier tried to run. It grabbed him with one of its sickly, elongated arms and crushed him instantly. The sound was like someone stepping on a wet bag of leaves. A missile streaked through the air, fired from a nearby armored vehicle. It hit. Direct impact. Then the wind shifted and the smoke cleared. The monster was still standing. Its skin had cracked, revealing something black underneath, something writhing, almost shifting beneath its flesh. Its eyes flickered, seeming to adjust. It had learned. Ryan grabbed my arm. His face was pale, mouth slightly open. "We need to get out of here," he whispered, his voice barely carried over the carnage outside. He turned to look at me, eyes filled with something worse than terror. Hopelessness. Right now. The gunfire had stopped. The monster was gone, for now. The gas station was still standing, but barely. The windows were shattered, the walls riddled with bullet holes, and the air reeked of burnt fuel and blood. My legs ached from crouching behind the counter, my ears still ringing from the firefight. And then it hit me. This was our chance. I peered over the counter, scanning the carnage in the streets. Soldiers lay scattered like discarded mannequins, some slumped against destroyed vehicles, others in twisted, unnatural positions. Their weapons were still clutched in lifeless hands. I turned to Ryan. He was shaking, his arms wrapped tightly around himself. His pupils were wide, darting between me and the wreckage outside. He was still in shock. "We have to move," I whispered. "We won't get another chance." He looked at me like I was insane. "Move where? We're trapped. That thing..." I grabbed his arm, shaking him. "If we stay here, we're dead. But if we look like one of them..." I gestured toward the fallen soldiers. "Maybe we can get out. Maybe they'll take us with them." Ryan swallowed hard. He understood. We moved quickly, crawling over the broken glass and stepping onto the street, keeping low. The flashing emergency lights from abandoned military vehicles cast eerie shadows over the bodies. I knelt beside a soldier, lying face down, his gas mask still intact, his rifle half buried under debris. His chest wasn't rising. He was gone. I reached for his gear. Ryan hesitated, looking at the bodies. He wasn't moving. "Ryan," I hissed, "grab something." His hands trembled as he reached toward another soldier's vest. He stopped, stared, his breath hitched. He was panicking. And then, gunfire erupted nearby. We both flinched as a fresh burst of automatic fire tore through the night. Then came the screams. The monster was back. Ryan froze. I saw the moment his brain short-circuited, the moment his fight or flight kicked in. Hard. He dropped everything, turned, bolted. "Ryan!" I shouted, but he was already gone. His footsteps pounded against the pavement, disappearing into the smoke and shadows. I had 2 seconds to decide: run after him and die, or survive. The air shuddered. A massive thud shook the ground as the monster landed nearby, having leaped over buildings with impossible speed. Soldiers scrambled, opening fire again, their shouts drowning in the chaos. I sprinted the opposite way. I didn't look back. I dove behind an overturned Humvee, heart pounding, lungs burning. The smell of oil, blood and gunpowder clung to the air. I waited. Another explosion went off, so close I felt the heat against my face. The soldiers were engaging the monster again. It hadn't gone in my direction, which meant... I squeezed my eyes shut, guilt threatening to choke me. I couldn't think about that right now. I needed to get out. I glanced down at myself. I still had the soldier's uniform, but no helmet, no mask. The military barricades, convoys. If there was a way out of this hellhole, it would be through them. I took one last look at the burning wreckage behind me, at the flashes of gunfire in the distance. I ran until my legs nearly gave out. The world around me blurred into smears of fire and darkness, my breath coming in ragged, uneven gasps. Every few seconds, I heard another explosion, a distant burst of gunfire, a roar so loud I could feel it in my teeth. By the time I reached the main road leading out of town, I could see the military barricade in the distance, a makeshift checkpoint built from sandbags, barbed wire, and armored vehicles. Floodlights bathed the area in harsh, artificial glow. There were soldiers everywhere. Some were positioned behind mounted machine guns, scanning the tree line. Others hurried between vehicles, barking orders, dragging crates of supplies. I slowed down, forcing myself to breathe evenly. If I came in looking like a panicked civilian, they'd turn me away or detain me. If I looked like a soldier trying to return to his unit. I adjusted the rifle slung over my shoulder, wiped the sweat from my forehead, and started walking toward the checkpoint. The closer I got, the clearer their faces became. Exhausted, tense, covered in grime. Some soldiers were bandaged up, their uniforms ripped, stained with blood. Others had vacant stares, like they had already checked out. I could use that. As I approached, a soldier spotted me and raised his rifle. "You, stop right there." I froze, raised my hand slightly, making sure not to move too fast. "I'm with the ground unit near Lincoln Avenue. We got separated when that thing hit us. I was trying to get to the checkpoint." The soldier's face hardened. "ID." My stomach twisted into a knot. I lost it in the fight." I held my side, wincing, faking an injury. "Got thrown when that thing knocked the truck over. I blacked out for a bit. When I came to, my unit was gone. I had to make my way here alone." A second soldier stepped forward, older, more seasoned. He looked me up and down, eyes narrowing slightly. "What's your call sign?" he asked. My mind raced. The ground shook violently, sending loose gravel skittering across the pavement. The floodlights flickered. The young soldier's radio crackled to life. "It's moving on the checkpoint. All units prepare to engage." The two soldiers turned sharply, their eyes widening in horror. The older one spun toward me. "Get in the goddamn truck, now!" I didn't hesitate. I jumped onto the back of the transport, squeezing in between ground-faced soldiers, their weapons locked and loaded. The truck lurched forward, tires screeching against the pavement as the convoy sped out of town. I looked back, and I saw hell. The entire skyline was on fire. Buildings collapsed like cardboard, their skeletal frames glowing with flames. Helicopters hovered above, dropping missiles in quick succession. Each explosion ripped through the streets, sending shockwaves through the air. All of it followed by a deafening, animalistic screech. The monster emerged from the smoke. Its massive insect-like limbs propelled it forward at an impossible speed, its body still shifting, pulsating with unnatural movement beneath its stitched-together hide. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Soldiers fired everything they had: mounted turrets, rocket launchers, incendiary rounds. But it didn't slow down. It was speeding up. One of the helicopters swooped in, launching 2 precision missiles. The explosion engulfed the creature. Fire, smoke, debris. The truck jerked violently as the shockwave ripped through the street. I shielded my face, the heat almost unbearable even from this distance. Then, through the thinning smoke, it was still moving. All of my surroundings exploded in a noise, the same robotic voice from earlier. "We regret to inform you, containment has failed. If you are still in the area, may God help you." The moment the alert came through, the convoy's radio flared to life. "All units clear the zone. Code Black is in effect." The soldiers in the truck went dead silent. Then, one of them whispered, voice hollow, "Jeez, they're nuking it." I turned back toward the town, my breath catching in my throat. A blinding white light engulfed the skyline. The shockwave came first, a concussive force so strong it felt like my lungs had been punched inward. The ground beneath the convoy rumbled violently, cracks spiderwebbing across the pavement. A towering, unnatural mushroom cloud rose into the sky. The town was consumed in an instant. Everything gone. I couldn't move. I could only watch as the place I had lived my entire life was turned to dust. The truck sped forward, leaving the destruction behind. None of the soldiers spoke. There was nothing left to say.